Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. This episode of Friday Morning Ramblings is all about fall gardening. It's August 13th. Now is a great time here in Maryland, East Coast, Zone 7, to start planting your fall garden. Direct seeding, growing transplants. I'll talk about that as we walk around and tour. Today's video is sponsored by HoseLink. Please give me 15 seconds. I want to show you these quick connect accessories that really make watering your garden so much easier. A retractable hose is a game changer in a garden. If you're not familiar with them, you just give them a quick tug and the hose recoils. It's perfect. I highly recommend HoseLink if you want the retractable hose. But they also have brilliant accessories. Different spray nozzles, whatever you really need for your garden, they're perfect. These are quick connect accessories. So right now the hose is on. If I push this forward, simply give it a twist, they separate. If I give it a push, it turns on. I like using a quick connect that has a shutoff here, just in case the nozzle fails, I don't get water all over the garden. To put it back together, you don't have to spend time spinning it back on. You just line it up, just like that, give it a twist, turn it on, it's back on. It really saves you a lot of time. Now I have several HoseLink throughout my property, but I only have one faucet. Let me show you how quickly I can change hoses from HoseLink to HoseLink using these quick connects. The quick connect accessories work with any hose. So this comes from the main faucet of my house. I got to take this to another place. Just come over here, give it a twist, separate it, and now go right over to the other HoseLink. The quick link accessories will save you a lot of time. This is the back hose for my HoseLink that waters the garden in my front yard. And you just line them up just like this, give it a twist, and now everything is hooked up. Pull this down, the water's flowing. It's just that easy. These are really inexpensive. I really recommend taking a look at the quick link accessories and the different spray nozzles. They're made really well and they will save you a lot of time and make watering so much easier in your garden. A retractable hose is wonderful, but the quick connect accessories can go on any hose, and it really makes switching out your sprayers and moving the hoses around so much easier. Here we are. So here is a section of the garden that was out of control. I'm going to cut in and show you what it looked like. It took me about 20 minutes. I am just piling the weeds as I pull them out in different places in the garden, and this was probably from 3 days ago or so. When I get to these piles, I'll get rid of them. But I don't want to get bogged down with thinking I have to make the garden look perfect. My goal was to get in here, clear out all the weeds. I use the weed whacker again. You can see another pile. But I just go in, I yank all the weeds, I cut the weeds back, just drop them to the ground, be done with them. You can clean it up later. The heat keeps coming. 95 today. With the humidity, it's probably over 100. But this is a corner that I let get out of hand. It's going to take me a good 45 minutes to get it under control, but I want to start planting seed starting stuff for the fall, so I'm going to use this space. So it's time for this to get cleaned up. I'll be doing the Friday morning ramblings in a couple of days, but just wanted to show you gardens do get out of control and you can recover and get them back in shape. Here we have the fruit section of my garden. It's looking pretty good. One thing I want to show you is the ginger. It's doing really well there. I had a plan, that's ginger, if you don't know what it looks like, to use the blueberry plants. Oh, here's a weed I missed, and it's seeding. Let me get in there and yank that out now, gently. You really want to get rid of the weeds before they do that, because now it's going to seed and they're all going to come back. Anyway, the ginger is in here. They love the warmth, but they don't like the sun beating down on them, and they're doing beautifully. So I use the blueberry bushes right here to kind of screen the earth down there, kind of keep the roots cooler, and they're doing pretty well. Ginger is really easy to grow. I have lots of videos on it. I like to start it indoors and then get it out here sometime in May or something like that. Also wanted to show you, if you've been watching the ramblings, these pepper plants were struggling. I've been spraying them with hydrogen peroxide and they've come back really nicely now. I got to cut back the muscadines again. They're taking over. But the pepper plants are nice and strong. I harvested most of what was on here off a couple days ago. But just stick with it. These guys had problems. They had this leaf disease all over, and the plant was just dropping leaves. They were really beat up. This will get one more spray of the hydrogen peroxide, and then I think these are good to go until the frost comes and takes them. But they finally came back and they're doing really well. Same thing with the shishitos, and if you're not familiar with them, so these are usually sweet, but every once in a while you'll get a hot pepper from this bunch. So you just got to be prepared for that. It's not crazy hot, but some of them are just like that. So this is what the peppers look like that I just showed you. And these guys got the same disease, hydrogen peroxide. They're recovering a little bit more slowly, but all the new growth looks pretty good. Leave them on longer. They're beautiful. They turn red. They're sweeter. Flavor changes. But hydrogen peroxide, 8 ounces in a gallon, is working for my peppers. Strawberries, they'll be a subject of another video. They're just beat up. Listen to that. Because of watering, and you know, for the last several weeks, like everybody else, I just got tired, missed watering some of these containers as I should have. That's okay. They are very resilient. I will be cleaning these up, fertilizing them, tucking the runners into the different pockets like I did here, propagating my strawberries. So these towers will be completely full with strawberries come next year. The eggplant, aside from flea beetles, which I have to treat again, absolutely wonderful. They came back, and I guess maybe the theme was those peppers were beat up, the eggplant were beat up. You just slowly take care of them, get them under control. Still lots of holes in here. You know, I haven't gotten rid of the flea beetles, but the plants are thriving. Plenty of eggplant. Another wave of cucumbers down there. My cucumbers pretty much got devastated with me getting tired out, the heat, the diseases. They're kind of beat up, but I'm putting in more cucumber plants now for wave number 4 maybe, so that these will grow well into September till the frost comes. Basil tower, beautiful. Cilantro in there. Keep planting. That's one of the main things that I always encourage you guys to do, is keep the plants going. Jalapenos, still didn't get to making that video yet. I have to get in there. There are so many hot peppers, jalapenos in there. Disease problem on there too, under control with the hydrogen peroxide spray. But this was a success. I think it was 24 jalapenos in there. I'm going to do 20. I'm going to open up the space next year so that more sunlight gets in there. But, you know, perfect. I'm really, really happy with that. Cherry tomatoes, different varieties, beat up from the heat. Lots of production, but not a lot of leaves. And these split really quick. So they're coming quickly. Believe it or not, I've harvested that plant like 3 times, and I just can't keep up with it. And they tend to crack much more easily than the black cherries that are just down there. So this one's going to be a keeper. You can see the rest of the tomatoes. They're looking good. We're walking over to where I'm doing the fall gardening. So the thing to keep in mind, and you'll see that, again, the garden's a mess, but I want to show you guys what a garden really looks like. So for fall gardening, I'm in Maryland Zone 7. The soil temperature is easily 80, 90, 100 degrees when the heat is beating down on it. That is too warm for your cool weather crops. They like the cool weather. They can take a frost. But we're sort of in transition here in August. Last night it was 59 degrees. Today it's 82 degrees. When those temperatures start switching over to the 80s, upper 50s at night, lower 60s, the ground is starting to cool. When the ground starts to cool, you can start planting in all of your cool weather crops by seed or transplant. They're going to love the heat. They're going to establish. But now, in the next weeks, those temperatures are going to be, the temperatures will be dropping around here, and the plants will love it. So you can get, this is actually broccoli in here, a little beat up because it's really hot. I don't have any mulch down, so I would recommend mulching. That will cool the soil. These have to get watered right away. Really quickly too. I just put these in the other day. So these have to get watered, mulch, keep the roots cool. But broccoli here in Maryland, if I plant this in the spring, it starts out great, starts forming a head. But then the heat rolls in, the soil warms up, and that head of broccoli begins to flower. And I never get nice full heads of cauliflower or broccoli when I plant in the spring. So I've adjusted to growing this in the fall. Get it in now. The plant will establish, then a cool weather rolls in and the temperatures start dropping, and the broccoli loves that. So there's no heat coming, so it's the reverse. if that makes sense, so that the head of broccoli just isn't going to flower. It's just going to stay nice and compact because the cool weather is rolling in, the frost is rolling in, and all your cool weather crops just about can take a frost. So these have to get watered. Final wave of cucumbers put into there. That's the final wave of my warm weather crops put into there. Yanked out lots of cucumbers, yanked out sunflowers that were spent, pulled out a cucumber plant that was diseased and just dropped it there. This will all get cleaned up. Cucumbers dropped right down in there for the next wave. Been harvesting cantaloupe. Disease came in. What I learned about this group is I just don't need that many cantaloupe in one space, but they did fine. Great experiment. I'll be growing cantaloupe melons in there again. So the cool weather crops, that's the strategy, and that's the questions most people had is, can I start them now? And someone in Arizona today might say, can I start my cool weather crops in the ground now? No, I'm in Maryland Zone 7. You're looking for when your temperatures start dropping so the nights are cooler. So you just have to time it. Some stuff you can try planting now, take notes, and see if the timing is right. Tomatoes are rolling in nicely. Some of the plants are beat up, but you know, I've been spraying. The new growth looks good. Lots of brandywines, lots of different tomatoes in there. They're all going to be harvested. I'll be making a sauce out of them. But I'm happy with where my garden is, you know, middle of August. And they look pretty good. I mean, there's some plants beat up in there, but they look good. This was a wave of green beans I planted in helping people learn how they can grow their food security, basically learn the skills of gardening. So these were put in not too long ago. I want to say probably somewhere in June, but just in this little mound, maybe June 16th if I recall right. And look how big the green beans are. They're starting to produce. So if you're just getting started with gardening, you can just use a little strip like this and plant. My cherry tomato is taking off. That will produce in September. Had a beautiful zucchini plant, picked a lot out of there. Got some sort of vine borer, some sort of problem. I cut it back harshly, put soil on it, mounded the soil all around the stem, watered it in with a water-soluble fertilizer. It'll get watered again today after this video, along with those broccoli plants. They will put out roots. The stem will put out roots. This plant will reestablish, and it should start growing again. Cucumber plants are still going. Look at this ridiculous guy. Let's take this one off. This one is almost as big as my forearm, and that's past its prime. Here's a good one. You know, you want to pick the cucumbers when they look just like this. If the skin color starts turning, the taste is going to change. I collected all this while I did the afternoon ramblings. Basic cucumber, tomato, onion, salad, vinegar, oil, garlic from the garden, everything from the garden. This is all I do. Pick what looks good, get it prepped, and I'll show you. This is the basic prep. Now, heirloom tomatoes, they are not perfect like what you buy in the supermarket. They taste wonderful. Just cut off whatever pieces don't look good, and then we're going to chunk that up at the end. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to prep onions, cucumbers just like that. That is the garlic. It is kind of ground to a paste with a knife, coarse sugar, black pepper. Put that into the bowl first. We're going to put in red vinegar, olive oil, cucumbers. This was 2 cucumbers. That was, I think, 2 medium onions. So for about 10 minutes, I take a big pinch of salt and I just cover the onions and the cucumbers. That salt's going to draw out the flavor of the cucumbers and the onions. Now, I also have jalapenos. If you don't like the heat, obviously you don't need to use them. But again, a big thing of coarse salt on there. Now, this is not going to over salt your cucumber salad. A lot of this falls into the liquid, and then when you scoop it out, you use a slotted spoon. So you're not getting all the sugar, but all this salt. The trick is that if you put salt on the jalapeno like that, it pulls out a lot of the heat. You can actually then rinse the salt off. It takes away some of the heat, and you still get the jalapeno flavor. So I'm going to let these sit for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to chunk up and add in the tomatoes. It's been about 10 minutes. I said sugar earlier, putting salt actually on the jalapenos. I just want to be clear, there's no sugar being used. So everything's sat 10 minutes, the flavors look right. Throw in the jalapenos, chunked up tomatoes, And then into something about that size, it's a 1/4 cup of olive oil, 1/4 cup of red vinegar. You can add more. When you serve this, you want to serve it with a slotted spoon so that you're not getting tons of liquid. So you can use more oil, more vinegar if you want. And I'm actually going to put in a splash of apple cider vinegar. And some oregano. You could use the fresh basil that was out there or whatever you want in the way of herbs. Let me mix this together. It's pretty much done. Looking at this, I probably want to add in one more cucumber. You can add more or less of the ingredients that you like. Salting. So now that you've kind of put everything together, you give it a taste now, see if you like it. If not, you can add more salt, more pepper. Always put in less salt and pepper to start because you can't remove it. You can always add it. And this is what it looks like plated up. I eat this just about every day, some variation just based on what is fresh out in the garden. The taste is going to change. And leaf disease, they've been sprayed. They're kind of coming back, but I'm going to probably be pulling these guys out too. And you can see that I've been going around just yanking weeds out, pruning plants, trying to take care of things. Things look pretty good. Got a nice melon over there back in that container. Lots of peas will be going in here. So this is where I'm starting my fall garden. Cucumbers, tomato, the tower's doing really well. Needs to be watered again. This almost has to get watered every other day when the temperatures are getting into the 90s. So your fall crops, and a lot of people kind of get burned out. So I want to encourage you, when summer kind of has you beaten down, cucumber plants are beat up, zucchini plants are beat up, take a look at the stuff that's growing, you know. Enjoy what's successful. This will help you kind of get through the disappointment of plants dying off. But we have a fall garden, so if we can kind of rally, get some things planted, you're going to really enjoy the cool September, October, and getting plants. So this is a place that I started early. Carrots, direct seed them now. They're going to love that. They're going to sprout quickly. They're going to get growing. They're going to like the warmth. The roots going to develop when the cool weather rolls in. Same thing with beets. Put them in as seeds now. Let them, you know, germinate, do their thing. They're going to love it. It was a little bit too early for lettuce. That's why it's kind of leggy and stuff like that. It was too early for radishes. There's no radish bulbs on there. It was too warm when I planted these several weeks ago by seed. It was a good time for peas. Get your peas in now. Let them get growing. Let them get their root systems established. Let the plants do their thing. By the time they begin to flower and produce pods, it's going to be cooler. They're going to be delicious. This is all going to get ripped out. I'll be putting in radish seeds. So I took notes, helped me figure out the timing. I have spinach in here that's probably, you know, put in too early. But now I have that 59-degree night yesterday, tonight, 80-degree temperatures, lower 80 degrees. I'm going to reseed some lettuce. I'm going to reseed some spinach. Now, maybe your garden is full. So you can start in seed cells. I recommend starting in a larger seed cell. If you want to follow me on Instagram under the Rusted Garden, I'm doing 1-minute fall gardening series, and I'm really talking about tips to help you fall garden. One of the things I was talking about was to go ahead and start transplants for cauliflower, Brussels, broccoli, cabbages, but just start them in larger containers. I also have a video I started on that I think I just put out last week on it. The larger container is perfect because you don't want the roots to get bound in there, and then you're going to have smaller plants. You want the root system to have enough space so that the plant is producing nice greenery, the roots don't get coiled and root bound, and then you can just drop them into your garden when you're ready. You can start the transplants outdoors. Just put them on the north side, east side of your house. You don't want those seed cells baking in the sun. It's going to damage your plant. I have Brussels sprouts in there. They need to be watered in. And that'll be the biggest thing, is that if you're putting in your cool weather crops now, really stay up on the watering, because the soil temperature is easily getting into the 90s, 100 degrees, and that's going to kind of mess up the warm weather crops. The timing is difficult. So up north, you're probably pretty good to go. Down south, you got a couple weeks to wait before you can give it a try. Keeping my butternut squash alive by regular sprayings, Just gave it a water-soluble feeding yesterday, soaked in 2 gallons of water-soluble fertilizer in there. It was Agro-Thrive this time. I also used fish emulsion. But there are so many butternut squash. I'm going to be harvesting all the ones that have turned sort of that color and taking them off the vine. And I have plenty of new ones, like if you can see the one, I don't know, back there. It's more creamy yellow-white versus this orangey color that's down here. That's when you harvest them, when the color changes from that creamy white yellow to more of an orange color. But I just let this vine go everywhere, and the plant is doing really well. Here's an example of young butternut that aren't ready to be harvested yet. But 2 plants, tons of production. Okay, let's make our way over here to the cool weather garden. First wave of beans are doing well. Peppermint spray is really helping them out. You know, still some damage from Mexican bean beetle and different things, but doing pretty well, producing nicely. Here's some more green beans that I have to harvest. This basil has been here throughout the summer. Using the beans here as shade, keeping that ground cooler, has slowed the flowering of the basil plant right here, and the production has just been amazing. So basil is a warm weather crop, needs the sun, gets plenty of sun to the leaves. But if you can keep the soil cooler, you're going to get more leaf growth, less flowering, and you can just harvest the plant a lot longer. Beets coming up. Those are my, oh, stepped on a cell. Those are my leek plants. Some more cucumbers going in. Need to be watered, of course. I mean, it dries out so quickly. Got to get the mulch down. So here's the space that I'm shooting videos on for the fall gardening series, if you want to subscribe and follow me. Right in there, the purple top turnips are already up. It might be hard to see, but right in there, the beets are starting to come up. They were planted maybe 7 days ago. They're going to sprout really quickly. So the warmth of August is a great time to get them sprouting. You just want to time it so when they kind of sprout up in about, I don't want to say exactly because it's not exact, but maybe in 3 weeks or so, you really want those cool weather temperatures to be, and I have more beets to pick there. So you're using the warmth of the soil now, get things germinated, and then I got to walk around here. Everything is cut off from the hot pepper. So the super hots are finally taking off. They're getting the size. They don't really start growing. If you're growing super hots like ghost peppers, etc., scorpions, they don't really take off till that brutal heat comes. They seem to love it. They're starting to form fruit now, and it really takes the heat of, look at the butterflies. This is Mexican sunflower. They just love it. So they love the heat. That's when they take off. That's when you get production. So the production for your super hots really comes after your other peppers. Good to have the fall crops in here. Kohlrabi. I don't think yet, this has to be watered again, but I put carrots in. So carrots could take 7-10 days to germinate. They still germinate slowly, but really try and get them in there. So I'm slowly transitioning my garden over to the fall crops. I've started cabbages, Brussels, cauliflower, broccoli in containers. I'll show you more about that in other videos. But I'm in a transition period. You know, things look pretty good. I want to talk about the tomatoes over here too, because some people are saying, should I top off my tomatoes now so that they ripen and they get ready to deal with the frost? So people that have maybe a shorter season, sometimes you read online that if you top off your tomato plants, that helps them ripen sooner. I don't know how true that is. It's not going to hurt, but unless you know when the frost is really coming, I recommend just let them grow. You know, maybe you want to top them off when you only have 3-4 weeks before the frost comes, because they're not going to do a lot, and maybe the energy goes to those tomatoes. But I also like having fried green tomatoes, so whatever doesn't really ripen when that first frost comes in, I just pick off the tomatoes, bring them inside. You know, if they have some color to them just like that, just put them on the windowsill. You don't have to over worry about pruning your tomatoes or topping them off, they call it, because the frost is coming. Just kind of let them do their thing. But I have so many tomatoes in here. I mean, this is one of my favorite. We're going to find this guy. This is a Homestead. Look at that beauty. This is definitely a keeper. I'm going to again thin down the number of varieties I grow by walking down this week and looking at the growth. This is a semi-determinate, so the Homestead doesn't get huge, but it gets masses of tomatoes about this size. This is a really nice size, absolutely delicious. This is a mortgage lifter, for instance, and it's beat up. Every year the mortgage lifter seems to get more leaf spot, more damage. I can manage it, but the production and number of tomatoes just isn't high enough. It's not worth it, so I'm not going to keep it. I've been able to keep the brandywines going. They're really susceptible to leaf spot. You can see where it all came in. It's under control there. These will get sprayed one more time. I think with the cooler weather, leaf spot will slow down a little bit. I will grow this one more time. I just like growing the brandywines. There are a lot of tomatoes in there, so that's nice. So it's worth keeping, even with the more susceptibility to disease. This is a variety, Mountain Gold, which I think is determinate. I'm not going to grow that one. I need to look it up. Maybe I thought it was indeterminate, but it's not. This was supposed to be a Brandywine Red. Why it's striped, I don't know. I don't think I created an accidental hybrid. I'm going to save the seeds to that, replant it, and just kind of do that over the years and see if, one, it's the same tomato that comes back, look it up and try and figure out what it is. I'm only doing that because I'm curious to see why I have a striped Brandywine when it was supposed to be a red Brandywine. You can see in there's some green, light green. So I gotta look it up, but it's a potato leaf. It's interesting to me. I'm gonna keep it. Cherokee Purple, pretty healthy, not producing like I want. I took a lot of tomatoes off of there, so this one is not gonna stay on my list. It's just not producing, you know, how I want. And then I continue working my way down and just looking for plants that are really healthy and really do well. This is the Arkansas Traveler. Let's take one of these off. Ready to go. It's a pretty nice tomato. They taste great too. This one rotted because I waited too long. Nice. Here's one that will go on a windowsill. And it's a pretty good production plant. I think I will keep that. Lots of tomatoes on there. I mean, look at all those. Good disease resistance. So you get the idea. Here is the mystery tomato. It's seeded itself, so it's kind of larger. Not really a cherry tomato, but you get the idea. I'm not going to keep this. I mean, they taste good, but I just don't want tomatoes this size. So that's how I'm going to be kind of trying to figure out what I want to grow and what I want to bring back. And what I'll do is I'll add in a couple different varieties that I didn't grow, see how they do with the pest, disease, production, etc. And I'm going to just kind of thin down over the next couple of years of what my mainstay tomatoes are, so that I have to do less work to maintain them. All right, let's go over to here. More of my tomatoes, and you get a sense. This is the standard Early Girl. It's all over the place because it's a nice productive tomato, good disease resistance, very productive. I'm going to keep that. You know, it's not an heirloom, but it's really productive. Just lots of production. So I'm pretty happy with how all of my tomatoes are going, and I'm looking for plants that don't get beat up like this and maybe look more like this. It's unrealistic to think that these plants will never get a disease on them, and the whole goal is to manage down the problems. This is my tomatillo that's dying off. Don't know why. Been putting a lot of water in there. We'll see what happens. Facing Heaven, my favorite pepper. Beautiful, red, ready to pick, point towards the heaven, you know, almost up to my shoulders. All the peppers are doing extremely well in these sunken containers, which is just a way for me to be able to water it more easily, conserve resources, just feed them. They look absolutely great. Experimenting with some shade cloth. All the hot peppers are going to be getting picked soon. Here is another mortgage lifter. So I just wanted to show you. Beat up, just like the one on the other side. And it's just not worth growing. That's sun scald from the sun beating down on it. Tomatoes over here, beat up. Some beauties. These are all going to be getting picked. This is a pineapple. This was a new experiment. You know, I mean, probably picked 4 off of here already. Beautiful, tasty, but the production just isn't great, so I'm not going to keep it. Finally, we'll finish up. I've been clearing out this space, and that's what I want to encourage people to, don't feel like gardening's a beauty contest. It's not. It's about, pacing yourself, enjoying yourself, taking care of what needs to be taken care of. So I had to get all the weeds out of here. I did, threw them into the wheelbarrow, probably filled with water and probably disgusting. I will clear these out. These are going to get filled, and again, this is going to be my fall crops. So with the temperatures coming down, and maybe just to recap, your fall crops, your cool weather crops, like 40, 50, 60 degree soil temperature. They like 50, 60, 70 degree days. That's how they grow nice and slow. They produce leaves or flower heads that we want to enjoy, and that's what we're looking for. You're using the warmth right now of August when the soil temps are 80, 90, 100 degrees. The days are in the 80s and 90s. The nights are still in the 60s. To get your slower growing fall crops started. Maybe your carrots, your peas like that. Peas grow really quickly, or germinate really quickly, but they take time to get to size to produce. Beets, turnips, get them in the ground now, and you're just timing it so that they get a couple weeks of growth, get established, and then those temperatures come with the 40, 50, 60 degree nights, 50, 60, 70 degree days. By getting a jump on the season, you'll really be able to get lots of production out of your fall garden before that heavy frost rolls in. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com. Go through your tomato plants now, go through your pepper plants now. Whatever crops are beat up, take a lot of work, take them off your list, replace them. Write down what grows well. Your garden will be, much better for it next year. You'll be happier. And there's so many different varieties of plants that just get rid of the ones that don't seem to do well, even though you might be attached to them, and go see what else you can find. Okay. Hopefully the cut goes smoothly, but I decided to change the ending because on my way out, forgot about the sweet potatoes. They're coming back with a vengeance. They were chewed down by the deer. When they got chewed down, I gave them some water-soluble fertilizer with nitrogen. The leaves are back. Maybe middle of August, I'll give them a water-soluble with higher potassium, higher phosphorus. That helps the roots develop. But these are going to do well, and you just let them grow and grow and grow till the frost comes, knocks them down, and then you're ready to harvest the sweet potatoes. I wanted to show you that this no-dig garden is pretty much under control. The poblanos are above my waist. I'm going to have tons of poblano peppers. I love those. But I wanted to show you the watermelons. These are planted late, but because it's warm, because I'm taking care of them, because I'm watering, we have 1, 2 watermelons, third watermelon back there. They're doing well. Potatoes are getting harvested. I have literally hundreds of potatoes under here. It's amazing, and I'll be growing potatoes here every year. Whatever tiny potatoes I take out that I'm not going to use, I'm just putting back into the ground. I'll weed this at the end of the season. Those potatoes, most of them will do their thing, they'll be okay, and then I'm going to just have potatoes growing back come the spring. This garden is doing really well. This is not fed with anything. It's not watered. Using the no-dig style, not overplanting it. The plants are taking care of themselves. And this is a black cherry tomato. I just wanted to show you this. I usually show this in the beginning. The cage is tied up right there so it can't fall over. Whoa, see? Let's pull it back and drop it right there. So this plant never fed, never sprayed, never watered, massive root system. Maybe we'll end with that. When you start plants as seeds out here, or you let them grow large root systems indoors in containers that aren't too small, you put them in, the root systems really establish before the greenery gets going, and that root system supports wonderful growth. Makes for a healthier plant, makes for bigger plants, makes for less need for sprays. They do better against pests and disease. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to figure out. That transplants help you get a jump on the season. That's wonderful. But if you let the roots coil too much and they get a lot of green growth with a very small root system, when you put them out, they struggle. You want to time it so the roots really have time to develop before the plant has to support a lot of greenery. Hopefully that makes sense. It's a great strategy, and it's making a difference in how well my transplants do. And this is a perfect example of a plant that seeded itself sometime in June, well after I did all that growing indoors with tomato transplants, and this plant is bigger than any of my tomatoes that I'm growing in there. Pretty cool. Thanks for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com. Keep gardening. I know that we can get beat up too with the heat or we can get beat up too like our plants with the heat, but try and get some cool weather crops in, especially peas. You'll really enjoy them, I think. And come September, if you don't plant, you're going to be, wishing that you did. Thanks for watching. Please check out my seed shop again, and good luck in your garden.